This is the Daily Actor Podcast. I'm Lance Carter, and in this episode, I'm talking with Ben Lloyd Hughes and Christian Madsen. The new movie Divergent is really good. I got a chance to see it a couple weeks ago, and I was completely entertained throughout the whole movie. I never read any of the books, because I can't read. But yeah, I think you guys are going to really like it. It's directed by Neil Berger and stars Shailene Woodley, Theo James, Kate Winslet, Miles Teller, Ben Lloyd Hughes, and Christian Madsen. The film's about a world where people are divided into factions based on their virtues. So after Triss, who's played by Woodley, joins the Dauntless faction, she quickly learns that she's divergent, and that's where the real story begins. Ben and Christian play members of Dauntless, and after talking to them recently, it sounds like they had a blast in their roles. In this roundtable interview, they chatted about their auditions, fight training, how they found the fear needed for their roles, and a whole lot more. I think you're going to like this one. Daily Actor has a new look. Logo, theme, everything. We redesigned the whole thing, and you should definitely check it out. We still offer website design, casting director, mailing labels, career coaching, list of headshot photographers in your area, all that and more. Check it out at dailyactor.com. And now, here's Ben and Christian.
So I think this is going to be a big movie because any movie that my wife actually wants to see, it turns out to be a huge hit. So,
okay. Good luck to her.
Catching Fire.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, she's And has she seen this, or she just wants to see it?
She wants to see it, yeah.
Oh, wow. Have you guys seen it?
Yes.
Brilliant. What'd you think?
I liked it a lot.
Yeah, Ben hasn't seen it.
Yes, just to warn you, I flew in last night. I haven't had the chance to see it. I'm hopefully going to see it tonight. So
you're terrible.
I will talk about the process of making it, but I hope that I'm still in it and that
I haven't read the books, but or the book, but
next.
How did it stay true to your characters? I mean, the eventual movie.
Yeah, I think so.
I had to change gender. It was weird. Not kidding. No, I think that was all of our sort of thing in the beginning when we all met and sort of did read the script together as a group. We had all been casted as that we wanted to stay as true to the book as possible. You know, especially for me, believing that one of the most important things, I'm sure, for Al was that to keep the friendship close between Christina, Will, Triss, because these are things I can relate to in a high school, you know, is sort of having this knit group when you go through a challenging situation like sort of Dauntless was. So yeah, I think our main goal was to be as close to the book as possible.
Yeah, and the great thing about Neil, the director, was when we were rehearsing it for kind of 3 weeks before shooting, he was so open to our ideas and our inputs, and most of us, we were always saying, he was like, is there anything in the book that you love that isn't in the script that you would love you think is really important? So that was mainly the conversation to I think everything in the script is great, there's this one bit in the book that I think it would be really important to keep, and that.
Yeah, even though you have a set script, what is sort of great about movies, different from a play you sort of have to stick to what the writer has written. I mean, he was really like, we would shoot one day and the next day he would go away and really rewrite or change certain things to be more like the book, or we would have these rehearsal processes where we wouldn't necessarily act out the scenes, but we would kind of read the scenes and then talk about it and what we all sort of wanted to have from it. And he was just so open and sort of really hands-on about the whole approach, and it was great. As an actor, to sort of, that's kind of what your goal is to find a director that works with you and takes, sort of what you say or your input seriously. And I mean, I think he really individualized all of us and did that for us.
Were you too disappointed to find out that neither of your characters move on in the franchise?
Well, I knew. It wasn't a surprise to me because it wasn't like I got cast and then opened the script and was like, I knew from the moment I auditioned for that character that he wasn't going to make it, and I was happy with that because I don't want to really talk about it because I think it's a spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen the film or read the book. So hopefully you guys won't print the fact that we die because that
Will dies.
Well done. I hate going to see films where especially in the trailer, they kind of ruin stuff, or where you see an interview and you're like, well, what's the point of going to see the film? You just told me everything. So please don't give that away. But for a personal note, it's just such a brilliant opportunity to be part of one film like this, and the whole thing about a franchise is cool, but just being able to talk about one film and one experience is exciting enough.
Yeah, I think when you relate to a character so much, it's kind of like you wouldn't want to not take it, even if I died right in the beginning and I was just like sort of, but I just think that was the thing with me, is that...
Because you were offered 4 and you turned it down, right? You were like, no, I don't want to play 4, I want to play
Tris or 4, and I was like,
And then they cast Kate Winslet in.
Yes, I had to turn that No, it was just sort of, when I read the breakdown for the character, it was just kind of like, what's exactly who I feel like I am, which is sort of shy and obviously sort of bigger, but don't necessarily want to show that side. I'd rather, I think when I was in high school, it was like the football coach would take me out of class and try and be like, hey man, a wide receiver position opening up, but I just wanted to take the theater route for whatever reason. So I just related so much with those things, and I got to the part where he sort of dies, but it's things I can relate with, not the dying part, but the part of sort of chasing the girl that doesn't like you, or sort of this romancing thing. And I've been that guy in high school, and I know that feeling, and to get to show that, and obviously work with Neil and all these people, it was sort of a dream.
Will either of you pop up in the second movie? Because though you die, your deaths sort of carry on throughout.
That is true.
Flashbacks,
there has been talk of it. I have honestly no.
I'll be in Forrest hallucinations, but
dreams.
Yeah,
Al's gone. Just get out.
It's not written, but I'll be on set and I'll be kicked off. But
your presence will be there.
No, I have no idea. I have never read a script for the second one. I know it's being talked about. If they need me for anything, I'll be there. But if not, I've enjoyed the ride, and thank you very much.
Working with such a big cast, how was that for you?
It was cool. It was a big ensemble vibe, so that was great.
It was good because we all got in that van day one, and it was just kind of like you hear Ben's British accent and Theo's and Jai, and so it's like it's a great mixed bunch. But I think we all were similar, but we all kind of were. We all brought our own thing to the group, and I think we really all connected really great. And we had to do 2 weeks of stunt training, or 3 weeks of stunt training, and that was really a great bonding process. When you're kind of like on your last breath and doing push-ups and look over and somebody helps you up, it's like a cool moment. So, it was just, that was sort of my first sort of experience where I was like, okay, these are some great people. Yeah.
You guys said you rehearsed for like 3 weeks?
Yeah, he says 2 weeks. I'd say 3.
I think it was.
Was it 2? Okay, so 3.
That's like
it felt like 3.
It felt like a year
movie like this,
we were lucky to have it.
Some movies they'll, like if you do like a Lone Survivor, they'll fly you down and you do like 4 weeks of but I think they just wanted to ingrain in us, mentally and physically that. This is what the character's sort of going through. And he's always thinking of this fighting style, or this posters are knocked down. It's sort of this fighting style and this mentality of like, it's kind of like one small step and you factionless, one small step and you move up, And I think the training process really helped out with that. And we were doing stuff I'd never really heard of. We were doing they would put this tape out and sort of make it like a star, and we'd have to run our elbows through it and make this thing, and it was just, it was really interesting, and you would sort of find yourself in your apartment that night sort of being like, doing this thing, and it was like, it sort of got you mentally more, into the character.
Yeah, and it is a luxury to have the time, if you can do it, to sit down with the director before the first day on set, and just have time to talk about what's going on, so it's not so daunting as soon as you arrive.
Neil came to the warehouse that we were sort of doing the fighting stuff at, and I remember being like, okay, don't mess this up. We had to do this fight sequence, and Neil sort of like watched us do it, but he was more like with us. He was sort of he was directing. And then, it was, that was sort of a cool experience to have him see sort of the starting step to our little fight sequence. So it was great.
So why do you think your characters both chose Dauntless, and which one would you guys choose?
I think Will chose Dauntless. Anyone who chooses to change faction, they have that innate rebellion in them. They have the lust for something different, and they have a kind of adventurous side to them. And Will had that in him. He's obviously very intelligent and a bit of a know-it-all, but he just... And I can really relate to that. He felt like something was missing, and he wanted to challenge himself. And in terms of if I was in a faction, I would probably, like Will, try and be dauntless. I'd try and challenge myself, and I hate in my life, especially as an actor, you always want to know you did everything you could to do something, and that you never gave up, and that you left no stone unturned. So whether I made it or not to the end of Dauntless training, I don't know, but I would certainly give it my best go. C-Dub? Shamrock?
Shamrock, C-Dub. I think for me it was like, I sort of put this sort of subtextual thing together where Al's parents were probably a little tough on him, and maybe he had a father who was sort of pushing him to be more like a man rather than, you show yourself, you're big, whatever. And I think he went into Dauntless wanting to prove to people that he could, maybe if Al had a little bit more of a big brother type thing, with somebody, he probably could have become like a sort of a leader at some point of Dauntless or whatever. But, I just think once you get into that situation, it's much different from what you thought it would be. It's tough, if I were to choose a faction, I guess I'd go Dauntless too, but I'd probably die day 2, jump off the train, I would miss it, and I would do it because it's so much different than my sort of life now. I don't jump off trains and fight, and I'm not like one step from being factionless.
What?
Yeah, right? I know. I have friends that are.
Yeah.
I don't blame you. No,
this is the military press.
Sorry.
People do.
And so I think it would just be sort of a great experience. I don't think I would make it very far, but give it a try.
What was your favorite scene to shoot?
I loved. There's a few that were great. There's one in the. I hope it's still in the film. The canteen, where we're all at the beginning, we're welcomed into the world, and there's a huge amount of extras, and just before,
where they lift you up,
where they lift us up, and we're eating, and there's a really fun scene. There's a lot of improvisation, and I hope
that is in there.
That is in there.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I was going to ask how it felt to be carried by Neil.
It felt good.
It was cool. Well, it was cool because Neil was sort of like, obviously Shay will be carried, Christina, and then it was like, and sort of me and Miles were like, it's right here, and he's like, in bed.
No,
and it was like,
it's in the book.
But I remember him sort of being like, well, does everyone get carried up? Because it was all the new initiates that get lifted up and into Dawn. And so they shot like a little B camera stuff of me and Miles kind of being like surrounded by the extras and kind of like wanting to be lifted up, but it didn't make it in the movie. I just remember being in that crowd, and it was like, this is so cool.
But apart from that, there was a day.
And Ben loved it, by the way.
I loved it.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was like genuine too.
Crowd surfing. So I've never been at a concert and done it. So it was a cool experience. Yeah, bucket list tick.
I feel like I'm too big to be.
Yeah,
we'd be like this 6'3" guy. No, don't lift it.
Carried in a concert crowd, so you'll do fine.
Hey, did you see that clip of that guy? It was kind of a month ago, but he jumped. He was in Finland or something, and he took someone out. He was high on drugs, and he jumped from a really high scaffolding. It was quite dauntless, but then it was really inappropriate because
this is every concert in Finland, I'm sure.
Anyway, another day, one of the other days I thought was just amazing was you realise you're in a big film when they took over the streets of Chicago on a brilliant, beautiful Saturday morning, and me, Miles, and Shay, and then a lot of extras were just running down and you could see the L train, and the story was we'd just run out of the initiate. I don't know if that's made the cut, but is that?
Yeah.
We're just running down, and we had a few lines, and it really made me feel I'd always wanted to do for some reason a film where I ran down a street in a suit.
I remember you turning to me and you were like, "This is so cool. The camera's right on me and I'm running." Yeah.
So that was a cool day.
What were your auditions like? Were there multiple callbacks?
It happened sort of fairly quicker than I hear other people's were, at least for me. I sort of was at a place where I just kind of was not getting that next level, sort of the next audition or sort of callbacks or whatever. Just all my feedback was like, good, but, too tall, too... So it was just kind of like a lot of rejection. Yeah, it was like, trust me. And so, I was just kind of like, well, going back to the hotel or like wherever I worked. And I had gotten a couple auditions that week, and one was this, and the other was like CSI, and it was like this other thing, and I was like, but I remember leaving and back to like that I related so much with Al and, that experience. And I've found other characters that I've related to before, but, it was different because this time I didn't look up who was directing. I didn't look up who was in it. You kind of get a breakdown of, let you know, sort of the studio that's doing it. I just didn't look at that page. I just went right to the sides and read the script. And I came in and did this scene in the audition, and it felt good. And they sort of asked me, like, where are you from? And stuff. And you leave and you don't expect anything. And I got a call like 2 weeks later, don't cut your hair. And then I got a call another week later, you're going to go on a Skype session with the director. And I think it helped me because I didn't look up who was directing it. So when I went to the Skype thing, it wasn't like I was like, whoa, Neil is there. I was just kind of like, there's this guy. And we did about 3 scenes, 9 different times, and sort of pushing the boundaries more and more of emotion. The scene had to consist of sort of me, and I was saying sorry to Tris, but it was push it more and more and more. Let's take a second, give yourself a second to prepare. Let's go more. So you really wanted to see if there was any range there, and I left feeling like, hey, at least I did a good job, and I got that feeling of what I wanted from acting and this craft of it, and sort of therapeutic. And I got another call a week later, don't cut your hair, and then it was just don't cut your hair, man. And then and then I just sort of got a collective call from my agent and manager. And I was being evicted at the time for my part, so it was very like great timing. But they were just sort of like, you got it. And still didn't believe it. Or still don't believe it. Yeah.
Nice.
Mine was a longer period. I went on tape for it about a year before it got made. I got sent the script quite early on, and I loved it. I just got so wrapped up in the world, and I said I love this script and I'd love to be a part of it. And went on tape a couple of times for 4 actually, and I didn't get that, but I kind of forgot about it, and then it came back and I put it on tape again, and then I'd forgotten about it until I was in LA just doing some meetings, and Divergent came up again, and they were casting for Will, and I gave it another read and still loved it, and I thought Will was still a great character and just a really great part to play, and then I met Neil over Skype, and I was lucky enough that he had seen me in a film called Great Expectations, which was a British film that I did, and he therefore I was at a huge advantage that he knew the work I'd done, and he wanted me to be a part of it. So it was just a process of meeting him over Skype, doing some readings, and then meeting some producers over a few days, and finally finding the news out, which rocked my world.
The movie, the story is definitely centered around fear. So what are some of your guys' fears?
Interviews.
Auditions.
Fear.
Spiders.
You Spider-Man?
No, it's like because you want to say that, because that's like the cute thing to, like, Christian didn't like spiders, but it's like, I don't know, like a pack of lions and I wake up and they just want to eat me? Yeah. Fears.
You come up with different fears depending on the situation, don't you? I got food poisoning 2 days ago, and I was meant to fly out to San Diego on Saturday. Yeah, you're scared of me, and I was scared of when you get food poisoning. It's something it's an animalistic vulnerability, and I was so scared of travelling. I had to cancel the flight to here because the idea of doing an 11-hour flight when you're sick is suddenly, that was daunting, and that was pure animalistic fear. I was crying on my floor, begging my girlfriend to call British Airways and ask them to change the flight. I was like a little child, so that was the last time I was very afraid.
Do you see, since the movie is based on a lot of fear, how did you find that for the roles? Because you didn't have food poisoning.
I didn't have food poisoning in Chicago. Would have been helpful. It was interesting because we were talking about this earlier. That the biggest thing that was the process of this film, which is something I'd never done before, which was a lot of reacting to huge situations, huge stakes. So a lot of the projects I'd done before was dialogue-based things where you know the intentions and the ideas of the character from what they say and what they do, whereas this was things happening to us and our reactions to that, sometimes without even lines. It was to do with our eyes and our relationships to each other physically. And so that was a really interesting idea of what you can convey with your eyes and the environment that you're in, especially when there's a green screen or you can't see it physically, what will be seen on the screen. And that was the first time I'd had to deal with those kind of green screeny ideas, but it was a good challenge.
What was your question?
About fears, about how you
yeah, I think
dealing with fears into the...
Yeah, sorry. I was listening and then I was like, what am I really scared of? Yeah, I was like, is there a spider? No. I think, when I sort of play something that I relate to, it's, I've had those fears of, it's smaller than going into a futuristic sort of faction, but your first day of high school, how are people going to look at you? How are people going to judge you? I didn't have as much confidence. Maybe I'm a little bit more confident now, but in high school I wasn't like that. In middle school I wasn't like that. I went through a lot of changes. I didn't always dress like this. I went through a hip hop phase. I went through a goth phase. I listened to rock. I listened to this. So you go through all these phases to find yourself. These are fears that I dwelled up for Al, and I know that he would go through those same things, even if you didn't see it on screen. And but it's tough, people think like, oh, you played like Al and you're kind of like Al, and it's like, well, it's not easy because you have to be yourself, and that's tough. And so bringing out the fears, I kind of just had to be myself, and it was a weird process, but I sort of had to do this emotional scene with Shay where I come back and say I'm sorry. And, for me as an actor, coming from theater a little bit, the greatest compliment you can get is sort of having a director respond with you and sort of be in that sort of world with you. And that was what was so great with Neil, is that when we shot that scene, it wasn't like he was behind the camera and me and Shay were off doing our thing. I mean, like, every cut, it was like he would spend 10 minutes with Shay. He would come over to me, make sure everything was, give me some type of thing to think about. And that's all I sort of want out of this whole experience of being an actor, is to kind of go through these difficulties with someone else that's willing to kind of take that ride with you or whatever. Couldn't have asked for a better group of people to do it with.
You mentioned green screen. Does it take a while to sort of get used to acting with that?
We're not here right now. This is actually
we are CGI'd in.
Yeah, I'm going to the bathroom again. Yeah. This is actually
yeah. It does take a while.
Do you ever get used to it?
Well, the good thing about it was that there wasn't as much as you'd think. I think when I read the script, you would be like, okay, well, they're not going to really have that Ferris wheel there. And then there was, like, they literally climbed a Ferris wheel.
Yeah,
and then
because they based it in Chicago. We filmed it in Chicago, which obviously
obviously, like, we don't have a 3,000-foot cliff down to the sort of plummet down there, but they created everything else, and it was like you would walk. I mean, when we walked into the pit, sort of pit, I mean, it was literally a pit. It was insane, and the set direction was incredible and everything. And I think that was what made our job sort of easier, is we would really run down the streets of Chicago like you'd read in the book, and it was just kind of cool to go through that. And when we first started shooting, there's got to be some type of B-roll on the floor somewhere of like me or somebody laughing at just like how realistic this was. You know, I mean, there's just a lot of takes where like, yeah, you're kind of like doing the training, but then you're like, we're really in this thing, you know. And like, I remember when the first day of shooting, we shot this fight sequence with Theo's character 4, showing us the fighting style of the Dauntless, which is sort of this Muay Thai style. And I remember we kind of walked in, I was kind of like a little dirty in here, like these mats are sort of not clean, and then we started the scene. I was kind of like, oh, this is how it is. Like it's real. And so that was just, I mean, that was like when I was like, okay, this is so cool, you know. So not as much green screen as you'd think, but then you'd walk into sort of the tarped green screen area. And it's interesting.
Thanks, guys, and thank you for listening. Keep coming back to Daily Actor for more great interviews, news from film, TV, and theater, and so much more. Follow me on Twitter at Daily Actor and like our Facebook page, facebook.com/dailyactor. Thanks for supporting the advertisers. I'm Lance, and I'll talk to you soon.